Crashes, smashes, and hit-and-run dashes, instant police, and a flock of geese. This week's videos run the gamut from cute to crazy, so get ready for 20 exclusive dashcam clips. Molly was driving her 2011 Audi Q5, which she describes as her dream car, when a Chrysler turned across her lane. Molly was unable to avoid a collision that totaled both vehicles. She still misses her Q5, and even though she replaced it with an Audi A4, she told us it's not the same. She plans to get another Q5 someday. Thankfully, after a year of physical therapy, the pain in her back caused by the accident is gone, but she still gets occasional migraines. This submitter was making a DoorDash delivery when she began slowing down for a right turn. The driver behind her didn't notice her slowing down in time to also slow down. He went off-road to avoid rear-ending her, but when she turned the same way, there was nothing anybody could do. The other driver said he'd been blinded by the sun and hadn't seen our submitter slowing down until it was too late. Sadly, her Nissan Rogue was totaled. Brett was driving along late at night when he was suddenly confronted by headlights coming toward him in his own lane. Brett moved over and honked to alert the other driver that they were driving the wrong way, but they just honked back at him. That's when Brett remembered that he had passed a cop in traffic a moment earlier. Sure enough, the cop car's lights came on as it flipped around to chase after the wrong-way driver. Brett said he had a giddy laugh at the instant justice, and he imagines the cop and the other driver had a nice conversation. This submitter was on her way to pick up her kids from school when the driver of a Toyota FJ Cruiser was aggressively tailgating a driver in the left lane. As our submitter began to pass the Toyota, the driver suddenly swerved into her lane, shoving the front of her VW Jetta sideways. She lost control, and the car spun around until it hit a stop sign. The Toyota driver then fled the scene while our submitter called 911. Her husband went to pick up their kids while an employee of a nearby business gave her a ride home. She went to the hospital to get checked out the next morning. State police are still investigating and trying to locate the driver of the Toyota. Our submitter told us the cops went to the owner's last known address, but they couldn't find the owner or the FJ Cruiser. Our submitter was able to file an insurance claim with the other driver's insurance provider using the plate number visible in the dashcam footage. She's also hired a lawyer to help her with the case. If you recognize the vehicle or know where the owner can be found, let us know and we'll pass the information along. Anthony was driving down a Florida interstate when he watched the driver of a black Camry swerve into the express lane without checking for other traffic. The driver of a silver Impala chose the least expensive option, running down a dozen pylons rather than getting sideswiped by the Camry. As the Impala driver then blocked the Camry in an attempt to force the driver to pull over, Anthony told us he could see obvious damage to the Impala caused by the collision with the pylons. The Camry driver managed to get around the Impala and continued down the highway with the Impala following close behind. Anthony eventually lost sight of them both, so he isn't sure what else happened. Corey was driving down a highway when the driver of an Acura SUV abruptly dove across lanes, forcing him to swerve into the passing lane to avoid getting sideswiped. Thankfully, Corey was able to check that the passing lane was clear before swerving, and no collision occurred. When he honked, Corey told us the other driver reacted as though Corey was in the wrong. Greg's wife Joanne was nearly rear-ended while driving her 2019 Nissan Leaf. Thankfully, the other driver had quick reflexes that made up for his lack of attentiveness. Sadly, the VW driver still managed to collide with an Acura that was waiting to exit a parking lot. Joanne stopped and offered her dashcam footage to both drivers. Hamlet was driving his Chevy Bolt in moderately heavy traffic when he noticed a car that, as he describes it, was crab walking.
Whoa! Mercedes is going down the road sideways.
A black Mercedes was driving diagonally at highway speeds. That has got to be the worst steering alignment I've ever seen, and I'm sure the tires were being absolutely shredded while being dragged along like that. Trevor was driving down a highway when he began passing a semi-truck on the right. Suddenly, the trucker began changing lanes without signaling, forcing Trevor to swerve right to avoid a collision. As he swerved, a Tesla driver in the right lane took to the shoulder to avoid rear-ending Trevor. Thankfully, no collisions occurred, but Trevor wanted us to remind everyone to use your turn signals when changing lanes. Sean watched a Nissan SUV T-bone a Chevy Colorado in Colorado. The pickup driver pulled out in front of the Nissan, failing to yield to traffic. When the Nissan hit the pickup, it spun it almost completely around. Sean stopped to check on both drivers and offered them his dashcam footage. This submitter was driving in Seattle when he watched something drive past him in a bus-only lane, but it wasn't a bus. It was this week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
The Tesla driver used the bus lane to cut around traffic that was getting onto the interstate. Has anybody else noticed that most of the bad Tesla drivers are in white Teslas, the only color that doesn't cost extra? The free color option was recently changed to midnight silver, so we'll have to see if we start seeing more bad drivers in silver Teslas. This submitter was driving when a biker behind him nearly rear-ended his Rivian R1T and had to swerve into oncoming traffic to avoid a collision. Hey, this is our first submission from a Rivian. Awesome! Our submitter told us he could tell the rider was embarrassed, but thankfully it was only a close call. Malcolm was getting ready to enter a South African highway when he watched a tailgating pickup drift onto the shoulder before overcorrecting and wiping out. After going off-road, the pickup flipped over in a drainage ditch before landing back on its wheels. Malcolm stopped and checked on the driver before first responders arrived. Thankfully, he told us the driver wasn't seriously injured. Victoria was driving home with her boyfriend after visiting her mom on Mother's Day when they watched a pickup driver use a turn lane to run a red light. She told us they've seen people do this before on Wham Bam Dashcam, but they never expected to witness it themselves. Sadly, they couldn't make out the license plate number in their dashcam footage. Ian was heading to a repair shop to check on his father's car when he encountered a pickup truck going against traffic. The driver of the old pickup swerved to miss traffic before returning to the wrong side of the road. The driver of the red Mazda honked at him, but he didn't seem to get the message. Ian told us he loves our videos and bought this dashcam a week before this happened. His previous dashcam lasted 11 years and 3 cars, and he considers a dashcam to be good insurance and a great long-term investment. David was driving in Australia. Here, let me flip the video over for the rest of us. Much better. Watch what happened when a pickup driver behind David changed lanes without checking for traffic. The pickup driver turned down a side street and fled the scene while David stopped and gave a copy of his dashcam footage to the victim. David told us the pickup driver was later charged with leaving the scene of an accident, driving without a license, and driving without insurance, as well as negligent driving. Ouch! Noah was driving along when a bunch of tree branches bundled up in a tarp suddenly fell out of the bed of a pickup truck and landed in the road in front of him. With the help of his Ford Fusion's automatic emergency braking, he was able to stop in time to avoid running over the tarp. He then drove around it in the other lane, while 2 guys exited the pickup and went back for the tarp. Santi's dad was driving their Kia Soul EV when they noticed a Chevy driver in the right lane. As the lane diverted to another highway, the Chevy driver suddenly dove left to avoid taking the exit. Santi told us he has a collection of footage featuring bad Chevy drivers, and when he discovered that Wham Bam had a channel for dashcam clips, he was excited to start sending them in. Thanks, Santi. Ahmed was driving when a red SUV ahead of him slowed way down to make an illegal U-turn, forcing everyone behind him, including Ahmed, to stop. The driver of the white Toyota behind Ahmed didn't notice that traffic was stopping and rear-ended him. They stopped and made a police report and insurance claims, while the driver of the red SUV kept right on going, oblivious. Fixing Ahmed's vehicle took 2 weeks and about $1,000 US. Thankfully, the Toyota driver's insurance provider paid for the repairs. This submitter stopped for a flock of geese crossing the road. Man, that's a lot of geese, and they almost used the crosswalk too. Our submitter didn't honk, but if he would have, I suppose the geese would have just honked back.
Wham Bam, we got a Patreon, man. Please support the show.
Want to win a Wham Bam hoodie? We're giving one away every week for 10 weeks. To enter, send a video into our newest channel, Wham Bam Security Cam. If your video is used in an episode, you'll be entered in the giveaway.